Hey,
Welcome
leaders.
to Atlanta.
Hey, leaders, hey.
Hey, leaders. Hey.
Yeah, we decided because we have the time to go ahead and do round 2 ATL podcast post role model show. That was the craziest crowd I've ever heard in my life. It was, but it's crazy. Every song was a sing along. It's just nuts.
Every song, everybody knew every word.
Every word. But I'm telling you, the crowd was louder than the band a lot of the time. You couldn't even hear the music. I was, and after the first, like, when he first came out, they went crazy, and I had to cover my ears. It was so loud.
I saw you do that, yeah.
It was brutal.
Yeah, me and Miranda went to Taylor Swift Eras tour, and it was a lot like that. It was, deafening. We were right there by the sound people too, soundboard, sound engineers. And what was the guy's hat? What did it say that you liked?
This is definitely my first rodeo.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
You liked that
This
hat.
definitely is my first rodeo.
Yeah,
I want to find that
my
hat.
first rodeo.
So anyway, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. And today we're not exactly sure how to go about it, but what we're talking about is being very intentional and being present with people, and also being good at, nurturing the environment around you too, and realizing how things affect a group of people, so
the nuances of like looking at the one versus looking at the many, and kind of coming in and out of them, or what you're more wired towards.
Coming in and out of them's tough. I think it's necessary.
It's necessary, but it's tough,
because we were kind of wondering, like, can you do both? Should you do both? And I kind of think you should kind of do both.
I think you should,
especially if you're leading any type of group setting. A lot of the time too, just trying to be aware of your surroundings, how it affects other people, stuff like that.
And there's probably parallels. I imagine, like, okay, Bible study, that's a scenario, but then you've got like a team meeting. They're pretty similar.
Yeah.
In the sense that if it's a discussion, or if it's a conversational meeting where there's many people talking and not just one, what are the things that you see? Well, we can go ahead and just flesh this out. Like, what is because we're different. I think me and you, we do view those, or we operate in those environments differently. But there's strengths that come from both. But like, how would you say you operate in those sort of like group scenarios, group settings?
I think I'm more group oriented, trying to get buy-in on the whole group. So we just started a couples Bible study a few weeks ago, and the plan was more strategically, I'll get up first, pitch the overall vision of the group. It's just more, I can do that a little bit easier.
It comes to you naturally.
Yeah.
It definitely does.
But then we were both on the same page about the vision, and then we're both on the same page about the goal and how we're going to execute it. But you're better at describing more of the details of what we're going to do and teaching what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So I was kind of the icebreaker. Hey, let's get this going, and this is why, all this kind of stuff. What we look forward to in getting this group. Now Ethan's going to come up and explain how we're going to go about doing this on a weekly basis.
It's the why versus the how.
Yeah.
You're really like on the why, which is vision casting, and then I'm on the how, which is like enabling or support, get it to the whatever, move it along.
And then just to kind of jump quickly into it, what initially sparked wanting to talk about this topic is, I heard Chris Hodges doing a podcast with John Maxwell, and how Chris Hodges gets mentored by John Maxwell, and he was talking about how he really admires how John Maxwell can be very present with people in the moment.
Like right before he goes on stage too,
before he goes on stage. He meets somebody, he is locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Hodges was talking about how he really wants to work on that because, as he's a pastor and he wants to stop, and he does genuinely want to stop and talk to people, but he's also thinking about the 3-minute countdown that's going on and what he has to say when he gets on stage, because he's the one that's got to go up there and then I got to introduce this song. I'm really bad. That's a really bad tendency of mine, because I'm so, I guess probably too, because I'm more oriented to do some of those things. I'm just more concerned about how everything's being perceived, I think. And so it makes me want to take it all in. And then I just lose train of thought sometimes. And I'm not always fully locked in. I wasn't. I'm trying to. I used to be like that. I'm trying to get a lot better because I acknowledge that it's not good to be thinking about something else while I'm talking to someone in front of me.
I think it's like, just acknowledging that's, and okay, so even in coach training, so like in some of the coach training that I've had, that is one of the things is like when you're trying to talk to somebody, especially in a coach scenario, it's one-on-one, it's not a group, it's different. But when you are having a conversation with somebody that is coach, in nature, you're really desperately trying not to think about the next question or think about the next statement. You're not trying to like get too far ahead of them because you'll miss it. You'll literally miss what they're trying to tell you in the moment, which is being present. Yes, active listening. But at the same time, there is an end goal in that conversation. So you do have to consider, and you establish that at the beginning, actually. Where are we going with this conversation?
Yeah.
You
so being prepared.
Yes. And you do have an end. There is an end goal. There's a target. We're going to get there. But you're not trying to like constantly think about that. You just know that's there in the back of your mind.
Yeah. And because if you're just trying to get to the end, you might miss something in the middle that's really important.
Yes.
And then could maybe give you a different outcome, which could be better than what you initially expected.
Yeah. And in the worst case scenario.
That's kind of my hope. It's like,
dude, yes. The worst case scenario is they tell you something and they tell you basically the golden nugget that unlocks them to get to the next step and you miss it. And then you tell them that same thing and you're like, and then they say, I already told you that. Oof. That's the worst case scenario of that situation, right? You weren't listening. You weren't present. But then the other one is like, you don't have a goal. You don't have a vision. It's not a productive conversation at all.
You're locked in, but there's no
present for what? Yeah, present for what?
Yeah.
That's the worst case on the other side.
Yeah.
So it is both. You know, you got to do both.
So what do you think what do you think is kind of your tendency? What's the good and the bad, you think?
So my tendency, I don't know how to really, I'll try and articulate this, but I do have my head in the clouds and my feet on the ground. That is like my natural wiring. So I am looking at the environment, but I am also really like concerned about support. Like I really do like gathering the necessary tools, necessary people to get to where it needs to go. So I like both. I am thinking of them in tandem, but you can tell, you've already said this, like when I'm in a conversation or even in a Bible study, somebody talks, as soon as they talk, I am zoomed in on them. Like, and I will acknowledge what they say.
You'll dive deeper too.
And I'll be like, I will really like kind of get there. And that the negative to that is if you stay there.
Yeah.
Because that actually affects, that is a detriment to the whole group. Yeah. Because you do have to keep going. Yeah. Progress.
Yeah.
It's not a coaching session. Mm-hmm. It's not a one-on-one.
Yeah.
So yeah, but in a conversation before the Bible study, being present, I think is probably the most important thing. Really connecting with people. But at the same time, don't suppress it if you want to like share something that's really inspiring to them. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's reading the room.
It's again, kind of what we talked about in the last episode is having discernment. All right, we need to dive a little bit deeper on this. Yeah. Or, hey, let's revisit that. Or anybody else have any feedback on that? Because then it gets them involved. Into it. That's more like my thought. Yes. Oh, that's good. Because I do remember last Bible study, somebody said something and you were so stoked. They said it. You said you're like their name and you were pumped that they brought that up. And you started diving more into it. And I remember I said, all right, let's do the next question. Because I just knew it had a bunch of follow-ups. Yeah. And it was all good stuff.
And so you knew we were going to get there.
But I was observing the room. Yes. And not that anybody else even was mad or anything. No. I was just thinking ahead. All right, that was really good. And now let's keep making sure we move forward. Yeah. That's where it comes in. It's having a team is just so important. It is. Because we would be approaching this so differently if it was just me and Haley versus me, Haley, me and you. And y'all's approach would be different. Yeah. And it's not Miranda's all good. Approach. It's not necessarily good or bad. It's just fun that we get to do it together because our personalities are different and we've been walking through life a lot together and realizing the strengths and weaknesses each other have. and then we can kind of just walk in tandem with those.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the relationship really helps with a team. Like, imagine if we didn't know each other. Imagine if me and you didn't know each other. Imagine if us as a couples didn't know each other and we loved this Bible study. We'd probably be having to like really discuss a lot more and wrestle a lot more.
You'd be like, why is this guy trying to just keep moving on? I'm trying to dive into this, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that helps a lot in teams, is knowing other people, you know, having real connections.
Trust.
Yes, trust. Obviously, you're not going to be best friends with everybody. Like, we're best friends. That's different.
Yeah.
But it helps to have a relationship
100%.
in a team.
And I think it does both, like we just said, trust. It's just, hey, even if it doesn't work out, hey, I tried and let's see how this works.
Exactly.
You know, and that's just so good for everyone else to see too. It's enabling other people to step in so you're not always having to do it.
Yep.
So,
Okay, so you go if you had something, because I got
no,
something.
you go.
Well, I was going to say, so we talked about that. We're talking about we're kind of on the ground here. We're probably like at the 5 foot level talking about things, but let's kind of zoom out and think about the difference in leadership. So this would be like what you described in the last podcast. Like Haley, she's kind of looking at the cattle on the hill. Mm-hmm. You're looking at the next hill behind that hill.
Yeah.
So let's think about that in leadership. So
Yep.
I am more present.
Yep.
I am more near term minded. Like, I'm thinking about what's now, and then I'll think about let's go forward.
Yeah.
And then you, opposite, right? Different. Yeah. How do those coexist? How does that work in leadership? Should everybody? Let's ask the question. It's a provocative question. Should everybody be future oriented? Should every leader be near oriented?
Yeah, I think it goes down to we're not intended to do this alone, regardless if it's Christian or not. You know, it's just, it goes both. It's everything, because even in business, you can go a certain distance by yourself, but you're just not going to go further. You know, you can go further, whatever, that whole saying. You can get there fast, but you can go further if you have a team, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just, it just really proves it, because if, you know, I was just all vision oriented and didn't have the accountability of someone to say, hey, we need to think about how we're going to do this, I would just drain people around me, you know? But if I was just around people that were just so like that we can't do anything else until we fix this, I would be drained. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we necessarily need to be both, or we're ever both. I think we just have acknowledgement of our weaknesses and realize our shortcomings and say, hey, can you help me with that? Mm-hmm. Because, hey, I know where we want to go, and I want to keep pushing those boundaries. And that's a hard thing, I think, with people that are more short-minded or present, like future-oriented, just present-oriented, not future.
Short-term.
Short-term oriented is they don't want to progress, or it's hard to have progression, you know, like true growth like that. Not impossible. It's just harder. That's why it's good
scale.
to have. Yeah.
It doesn't scale.
Yep. But also, if someone's just all future, it doesn't sustain if you don't have someone that's present minded. So that's why I think you have to have multiple people involved when it comes to that.
Yes. I think you just have to, I mean, we say this a lot, but you just have to know that about yourself. Like, oh my gosh, I am this way. I need to find somebody not like me. Yeah. And then I need to partner up.
Yeah.
You know, I need to connect with that person.
Yeah.
And we need to get this going.
We were doing a little meeting with the team and talking. It was just interesting to hear like how different people interact or view themselves, you know, and how they operate and stuff. And it was cool because one of the team members, they know what they want to do. They just can't see a path there, you know, and it's just, but then it's cool to say, you know, what I enjoy doing is like, well, hey, you could try I'm more of ideas kind of person, you know, and I think you are too. And that's where it's like the two kind of merge a little bit, because I'll have some ideas, maybe a little out there. You'll have some very like ideas like, hey, this is something you could like do immediately, you know, very practical, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're not as risky.
Yeah.
I think my ideas just aren't as risky, but they're there.
Yeah, I'm kind of like just go for it. and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's fine. That's my personality. Not everybody's like that, and that's fine.
Yep.
But yeah, I think, I don't know, like you're saying, just finding people that aren't, that have the opposite things of you, but it takes learning how you operate, to realize that. So we just did like a workshop kind of as a team, and the question my buddy Tim helped us come up with, it was just awesome. Like, we didn't know how to start the conversation, and he just happened to walk by, and then I was like, hey, what do you think we should start with? Just kind of being funny.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, this is great. He said, ask yourself, what do you suck at?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was just such a good start. And just think, not in a negative way, looking at yourself, it's like, oh, like, this is something I really want to work on. And then doing it with other people, you realize, oh yeah, like, they can encourage you into things you're actually really good at. Then they can help you see things you just don't see about yourself.
Yep. Yep. Man, there's no doubt that whenever you're, faced with an obstacle, that it really helps to have somebody, attack that obstacle with you from a totally different vantage point or a totally different perspective. Dude, there's nothing like breakthrough like that, because you're just stuck. You're stuck outside of your own vision, your own blinder. But then you come in, oh, I see it because I'm not in your blinders. I'm outside of them.
Yeah.
I just got away from the mic, but
You're good.
so they didn't even catch it. But yeah, find people that aren't like you, work with people that aren't like you, and appreciate the differences.
The good thing too is if you nurture that and then you build that environment, then you can just operate in what you're good at.
Yes.
That's the ideal. I mean, that's the ideal situation, but it's hard to achieve. But that is the ideal.
Okay, that is something about me, is I am an idealist. I really am. Like, at the end of the day, I want things to be ideal. I want organizations to be ideal. I don't want to. I get stuck on buying a product if I don't know.
See, I don't think about that.
I'm thinking about it all the time, Caleb. It's
You
exhausting.
literally, I've seen it. We did it like 10 times a day.
Okay, so
you try it on a couple things. You're like, no way.
Yeah, I'm just.
You just won't pull the trigger on something until you're for sure no.
But I work so good with people that are kind of like pulling the trigger, because I'll pull and push
Miranda.
with them. Yes, Miranda's just like that. But we'll push and pull with each other, a healthy discussion argument, and get somewhere. Because I don't know where I was going with that, honestly.
Well, we were talking about just being like have an ideal team scenario.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really, I definitely just strive for it being ideal, and that's not always real. That's not realistic. It's the opposite of being realistic.
Yeah.
And so I need somebody a little pragmatic sometimes. I have pragmatic tendencies, but I need somebody a little like, it's not going to be like perfect.
Yeah.
And just do it.
You'll
I
never
want it to be
start unless it's it'll never be perfect.
Never.
And it reminds me, there's a quote, I might have brought it up here before, but Mark Randolph, he's the former CEO of Netflix, was talking about how they were trying so many new things at Netflix as a startup, and they would spend tons of money in like a month on an idea, roll it out, and realize this sucks, and then have to go back to the drawing board. Then they were like, we need to do more ideas in less amount of time. So then they were doing 2 a month. Then it got to 4 a month. Then it got to 2 a week, 5 times a week, just busting out ideas. And some of them were ideas, they would roll it out, and then it didn't operate good. But he said if it's a good idea, it'll stick.
Yeah.
So a good idea doesn't have to be executed perfectly.
Yeah.
If there's something to it, like people are gonna, I want that, and it almost kind of, if it doesn't work perfectly, they'll go back and be like, I actually wanted that, and then they'll figure out how they can get it, right?
Yeah.
This is a quote he said. He would tell his team when they were doing all this: failure is not only okay, it's expected. I don't even call them failures. I call them tests that didn't work, but you learn from them. It's just a different mindset to have.
Dude, I would thrive in that environment.
Yeah.
I would thrive in that environment when there's like a freedom to not fail. Like, it's okay to fail.
Well, you would thrive because I think, and a lot of people would find comfort in somebody telling them, hey, I want you to try this.
Yeah.
And it's okay. There's no repercussions if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Here's the why kind of deal. Because that's the thing is, you would actually, a lot of people would be really good and probably better idea people or executors than the visionary, in quotes, kind of person, because it's very sustainable a lot of the time. Sometimes ideas are just like, that's impossible.
Yeah.
But that's good to have around too. But that's why I say people that aren't always giving their ideas, I actually really want them, because it represents a lot of people, and that's just huge.
The majority of the people really, honestly, the majority of people are not ideators.
Yeah.
And I might be even going kind of like saying something against what you just said, but it really does, to your point, make sense that when somebody who isn't an idea person, like predominantly saying ideas all the time, when they do, it's usually something that the masses are thinking and wanting.
It has weight to it.
Because they represent the masses.
Yeah. It's like the person doesn't speak that much, and when they do, it has weight kind of deal.
You're like, everybody's like, hold on, shh.
Yeah, like this guy never talks. And it's like, let's hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that's really good. So just to kind of wrap up and summarize, basically, being present with people, also being aware of people in your surroundings, both very important. It's okay that you're not, those you need to work on probably if you're one or the other oriented. And then there's future minded and present minded. It's not necessarily, I could be wrong. I think it's hard to be both, like as a strength necessarily. But if you just realize to be, if you're future minded, hey, make sure you're taking time to pause, making sure everyone around you is rallying around that and seeing that idea is catching wind, and then fueling it even more with more vision, kind of waiting to see.
Yeah, that's good.
And then if you're present minded, don't knock the big idea immediately because it doesn't make sense to you, or you don't see where that's going.
Yes.
Ask why. A lot of people want to know the why. Maybe you should it'd be helpful if you ask, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be offended by it.
Yeah, and that's a key thing though, because a lot of people do get offended by that question.
Yeah.
I've had to really dial that why question down a lot in my life, because I did ask that question a lot, like, why are we even doing this, or why did you do that?
Even how you just said it, it's negative.
It comes out negative.
Hey, it's almost doing the sandwich thing where it's like,
yeah.
That's a really interesting idea. I would love how you think we're going to do that. And I'd love to figure out how we could,
how you deliver it.
Yeah. How do we, basically, but it goes the same way for the vision side, because it could be very dominating or it could be very soloing to where, hey, I'm going to do this and I don't even need you,
Yeah. Don't be offensive and don't get offended.
Yep.
Which
and also
is easier said than done.
I think too is with maturing more is, even if somebody says it in an offensive way, try to just see their heart behind it and help them. Again, that's just another moment to be like, hey, I know what you meant by that. Because even when you were saying an example of, why did you do that?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I know you didn't mean to I know you want to help me do this.
Yeah.
That just wasn't very helpful, And
it's honestly better to ask. Don't even use the word why sometimes, because that is sometimes in a nutshell triggering. But if you could say, how did you get there? Could you explain that? Could you explain?
That was a wild idea.
Yeah. Wow. Not why.
I can't believe you thought of that.
Yeah.
Because no one should think about that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Which, I think I could ask that with you, because we have a relationship. I could ask you why. I don't think it would be as triggering for you.
Being discerning.
Yeah.
That's a big theme that's going to be in this podcast. Discernment.
Which discernment really in a nutshell is...
and it takes time to be discerning. You have to learn what's worked in certain scenarios.
Well, some people are more discerning than others, naturally.
Yeah.
Some people have a quicker gut, quicker instinct, but, and some people just don't. It requires a lot of okay, hold on, I've got to vet this. I've got to think about this, and then they do.
I think it's just having a mindset of growing in whatever area. That's all that you need to bring to the table. I'm trying to progress. You're trying to progress. Let's just do this together. Or you go and do it. I'm going to go over here and do it. That's just, if you keep that mindset, that's just so contagious. People want to be around that. Nobody wants to hang out with somebody that's just trying to fall back in life. You know what I mean? Nobody genuinely wants to do that too. We just kind of end up being stagnant or falling back because we just get lazy or complacent or unmotivated. Something happens. Those things happen, but you just have to get back up and keep trying.
Boom, bada bing.
Let's go. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. ATL Part 2. We're going to, we might start doing this where me and Ethan just do it separately over Zoom
virtual,
or something.
Yeah.
Because this schedule is rough sometimes. Now we're about to hit summer. And we going to got stuff going on with the kids.
We're going to be tired because the sun's going to make us tired.
Sun's going down late
Yeah.
starting this week. Yeah. So, but
true.
yeah, just really appreciate everybody listening and letting us just kind of talk with each other, and you guys chime in or listening into it means a lot. So
and give us topics too. When you see us, say, hey, why aren't you talking about this? Well, just kidding. Ask us, hey, have you thought about this idea?
I love what you guys have been talking about, but what do you think about this?
Yeah. Give us some ideas.
We're asking for your feedback.
Yeah, ideas.
So shoot us a message.
Yeah,
we're looking for ideas. Shoot us a message or whatever. So anyway, have fun this week and go bless the rest.
Thanks for listening.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say real quick, thank you so much for listening, subscribing, all that good stuff. Also, we wanted to know if there's any topics you want us to talk about. Please drop a comment, shoot us a message. We'd love for some ideas on some things you guys want to hear about from us. If we could dive into something we've already talked about a little bit deeper, or it could be a completely new topic. So anyway, appreciate you guys. See y'all next time.